أنتم تستمعون الآن لبودكاست تطوير. يهدف هذا البودكاست إلى مناقشة أبرز المواضيع والاتجاهات الحديثة في مجالات التعلم والتدريب وتطوير الموارد البشرية باللغتين العربية والإنجليزية. هذا البودكاست من إعداد إدارة تطوير الموارد البشرية بمعهد الإدارة العامة بالمملكة العربية السعودية.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we have Karen Bauer. Karen is from EducationUSA. She is EducationUSA Regional Director for Middle East and North Africa. So welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
We're happy to have you at the IPA. So would you tell us about yourself, Karen?
Great. Well, it's wonderful to be back in Saudi Arabia. I am with EducationUSA. I'm the Regional Director for the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Central Asia, based in Dubai. And I have the wonderful opportunity to be here in Riyadh for the next few days, as well as Jeddah and Tehran, to meet with a variety of students in universities and schools to tell them a bit about EducationUSA and who we are.
Cool.
And study.
Can you tell me what is EducationUSA?
Great. My pleasure. EducationUSA is the official source from the U.S. State Department about guiding students on how to study in the United States. And so we are in 177 countries worldwide. We have over 500 centers. And here in Saudi Arabia, we have centers in Riyadh, Jeddah, and Tehran. And what this means is that a student can contact one of our EducationUSA advisors and learn about how to study in the United States and what the best program is for them. It's really important that people understand with EducationUSA that being the official source, we represent all of the U.S. universities in the United States. We don't push one university over the other. We don't charge for our services. Our bottom line is to make sure that the student finds the right program, the right fit for them, and has a good experience in the United States. And that's what our advisors are here for. They are really the experts in helping and guiding students through sometimes that difficult process that can be confusing and a little bit daunting when there's a lot of options, and that the application process can be a bit confusing if it's not similar to their home country like Saudi Arabia.
That's great. So what kind of services that you provide to international students and in particular Saudi students?
Right. So here in Saudi Arabia, we have 3 education advising centers, Riyadh, Jeddah, and Tehran. We are in the U.S. Embassy here, obviously in Riyadh, and then in Jeddah and Tehran, we're based at the consulates. There are 4 EducationUSA advisors who are available to meet Saudi students and really talk to them about what their goals and aspirations are when they're thinking about studying in the United States and how to choose the right program. So a student can call our offices, they can talk to an advisor on the phone, they can meet one-on-one. In addition to that, our advisors go out into the community. We are at college fairs, career fairs. We do small group presentations and workshops to really help educate students about what they can do as they prepare to look at colleges and universities in the United States. And I'd be more than willing to talk to you a little bit about that process and how we break that down.
Yeah, actually, we'd be happy to hear about that.
Sure.
So, because we get this question a lot, I mean, what are the challenges? I mean, you know that most of international students and students in Saudi Arabia who want to study in the United States, they face a lot of challenges. Mm-hmm. So how you can help them to overcome these challenges?
Right. Well, that's a really good question. I think when a student is first beginning to contemplate studying in the United States, often they don't know where to begin. It's such a big decision, and we have over 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States. It's a very large country, so many students just need to begin to think about, well, where do I start in this process? With our EducationUSA advisors, we break down the process into 5 steps. And we really feel that when you break down the process into manageable steps, then the goal becomes a little bit closer. And we're really here to help the student demystify the process. So if it's okay, I'd like to walk you through the steps.
Well, yeah, that's going to be great.
Yeah, and tell you what our advisors do. So really the first step is researching your options. How do you find the right program for yourself, whether it's the actual institution, where it's at? Location is very important. If a student wants to go to an institution that's small, like a small liberal arts college, or if they want to be in a big city, like in Los Angeles or Chicago or Manhattan. Sometimes students will take into consideration the faculty, the different types of programs, how an institution is ranked. So we really help them in that first stage, researching their options and looking at 3 different categories: a dream school, a realistic school, and a safe school. So we all know that a lot of students would like to apply to top-tier institutions, but really when they're looking at the application process, they need to break it down into a variety of different institutions. So we help them through that first step. Where should I apply? The second step is financing the education. So how am I going to pay for my studies? Now it's great if you're a student at IPA and you have a scholarship, then that part is obviously taken care of. But really looking at how much it's going to cost, whether it's the actual tuition or your books or cost of living, transportation, having a car, all of those things are going to be a factor for a student when they're studying. The third is the actual application process and learning about the different steps. So that's the application itself, preparing for standardized tests like maybe the GRE or the SAT or the TOEFL, letters of recommendation, actually filling out the application, getting a personal statement together, really learning about that process. And then the fourth step is the student visa application, and the final step, the fifth step, is preparing to depart. So what you can do as a student to prepare yourself before you leave your home country to come to the United States to study and have a successful experience.
That explains a lot of, and I think it's really crucial steps, and I think you're helping students a lot with explaining to them what they need to do. I have a question about after the final step and when a student is ready to travel to the States. What do you think they should do? What kind of preparation that they need to do?
Sure. Well, for many students, this might be their first time going to the United States, or maybe even their first time out of the Kingdom or the Gulf. I think it's really important to keep in touch with the International Student Office that's going to be receiving the student on the other end. The university will send a lot of information, packets of information about how to arrive, what airport you need to go to, what you need to bring, paperwork to fill out before you arrive at the institution. It's very important to read through that packet of information in a very thorough way. And I also think too that in the world that we live in with social media and the internet, there's an opportunity to research a place before you go. So doing something as simple as going on the internet, doing a Google search of what are things to do in the area, what is the city like, what is the weather, is there public transportation? What activities are available? All of that can be done prior to your departure. And so that you have a general understanding of where you're going and what life will be like, whether you're in Arizona, Oklahoma, or even Utah. They're very different. The United States, and you probably know from your experiences, right?
Yeah, I studied in California, and I have traveled to several states, and I know that it's totally different. I mean, living in one state or one city, you will have different experience if you live in another city. So there's huge differences.
And even in California, it's so different,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
So
I lived in Northern California.
Yes.
And I have traveled and lived a little bit in Southern California, and it's different in terms of the culture, cost of living, and I feel the different.
yeah, I think that often there's perceptions, for example, of what California would be like. I'm also from California, and so people think of Hollywood and they think of all palm trees, and while there are places like that in California, it's definitely very diverse.
Yeah.
And we can take that, I think, across the states,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Definitely.
it's such a different experience depending on where you're at.
And I think it's all. I have, as I said, I have traveled to several states, and I think each place is unique in a way. There's no bad or good place. I think in each city, each state has its own thing. So, but I totally agree that because I have met students who doesn't like snow, like me.
Right.
I think it's really important, as you said, to research and to know what is the weather before deciding to go to a school, for example, in Michigan, which snows a lot sometimes. So yeah, that's. I think these are really helpful tips. We get a lot of questions about from students. They asking us why we should choose the states to study. So what do you think the benefits for international students to study in the States?
Great question. Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, there are over 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States. There's so much variety to choose from. We honestly believe that there is a fit for everybody. A lot of countries are much smaller. There's oversaturation. You want to go to a place where you really feel unique as a student, and Saudi students have that opportunity with the United States. I also think that our style of education gives leeway to a lot of flexibility. And let me just explain a little bit more about that. If a student is coming to the United States to study, I'll just take, for example, an undergraduate degree. The first 2 years are all going to be general coursework. The student has the opportunity to take classes across different majors to get a really general understanding of what they're interested in, as well as veer off into other disciplines and fields that they might not had an opportunity to do in other places. A lot of programs in other countries are very rigid. Once you start with a certain major or a certain focus, you have to continue that throughout your academic career. And in the United States, we like that flexibility. I'll give an example of when I was a graduate student. I did a master's in international education, and I was very interested in the Middle East, and they didn't have a specific graduate class for specifically what I wanted to study. So I sat down with my professor, I put together my own course syllabus, I put together certain papers, things that I would research, and I met with my professor throughout the course of the semester to ensure that I was getting the type of education that I needed, even though that specific class wasn't there. So really what we'd like to stress is that there's flexibility across the board, whether it's an undergrad or a graduate degree. We want to make sure that when students come and study in the United States, that they're getting the type of degree that they need and the knowledge that they need, so that when they come back to IPA or someplace else, that they have the know-how and how to do that successfully in the work environment.
Yeah, my personal experience in the States when I did my master's was so diverse, and my supervisor was so flexible, and they allow me to choose the topic, the topic that I want for my thesis. So I totally agree. I think studying in the States is more. I think it's allows students to be exposed to different experience.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. I think too, it's really important when I talk to U.S. university reps, they want international students in our classrooms. The last thing that we want is a bunch of Americans sitting in the classroom only talking about one issue. It's really important, I think, in the world that we live in, that we get a variety of different perspectives, and that's really real world, right?
Yeah,
so
true.
Saudis have a lot to contribute, as well as all international students, when we're talking about a variety of different topics or themes or current events.
That leads to my my next question. So when students, for example, Saudi students, is in the States right now, what do you think from your perspective that they should do? We get some feedback from students that they prefer to have their own communities, and others, they're not comfortable to mingle with Americans. So what is your advice? How do you think Saudi students can enrich lives of Americans in the States while they're studying there?
Yeah. Well, I think, when we go to a foreign place that's outside of our comfort zone, often the first reaction is to gravitate what we know, right? So to hang out with people that we know, and I think it's wonderful. We have many Saudi clubs in the United States where Saudis get together, and they, especially during times like now with Ramadan approaching, and sharing kabsa and sharing a lot about Saudi culture, because Americans want to know about Saudi Arabia. I mean, just even explaining the national dress is so interesting to Americans. So there's an opportunity for Saudis to share, but also it's really important that Saudis make American friends and get to know what life is like in America. How wonderful in November to go to an American family's house and have our traditional Thanksgiving meal, right? With turkey and stuffing, mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie. Really, the reason for being in the United States, of course, is to study and to learn, but it's also that cultural exchange. And I think that Saudi students who are successful integrate very well within the international student community, with Americans, with the town, the community that they're in, as well as holding tight to who they are as Saudis and being proud of that and wanting to share that. Many Americans will never come to Saudi Arabia, will never come to the Middle East, but Saudi students have the opportunity to share so much of the rich culture that exists here. And we want that to happen. And we encourage that. And it's wonderful when I meet an American when I go back home who says, "Oh, I went to school with a Saudi. Let me explain. They told me about, what it was like in Jeddah and the Red Sea, and what it was like to go to Mecca, and about their faith." All of that is very important.
Yeah, that's something that I think it's extremely important for Saudi students who are studying in the States to reach out and get the opportunity to know the culture and the people. So, in closing, what are some key points of advice you could offer to Saudi students who are interested in studying in the States?
Well, I would say please use our services. As I mentioned before, we have advisors. We have 4 advisors dedicated full-time to helping Saudi students study in the United States, in Riyadh, Jeddah, and Dhahran. Contact our offices. Follow us on social media. Find us on Facebook. Go to the U.S. Embassy Riyadh website, the U.S. Consulate General website in Jeddah and Dhahran. Download our resources. We really want students to have a successful experience in choosing the right program, as well as when they get to the United States to study. So know that we are here for students to help them. I would also say that we work very closely with our consular section, that we do pre-departure orientations. We spend a few hours talking to students and their families about going to the United States, getting their visa, demystifying that process, as well as what they need to pack and how they can stay in status, in good standing, once they arrive in the United States. So know that we are really here as Education USA to help students and ensure that they have a great experience in the U.S. and that they come back and continue to give to Saudi society and community and look fondly upon their study in the U.S.
Thank you, Karen, for your time and visiting IPA, and we appreciate that.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to come this afternoon to visit Saudi Arabia again, and I really look forward to coming back both to IPA and Saudi Arabia and for us to welcome your students on our U.S. university campuses. They are definitely welcome, and we are happy to have them with us in the States.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we had Karen Bauer, the Regional Director of Education USA in the Middle East and North Africa. Hopefully we're going to see you again in another episode of IPA Studio.
I can't wait to be back. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
it's a
Karen.
pleasure.
Thank you.
شكرا لاستماعكم لبودكاست تطوير، ونلتقيكم في حلقة قادمة. مع السلامة.